Good evening. Welcome to Educational Exchange Show. I'm your co-host, Elvia Poor Harris, and I have here our producer and host, Hani El-Kadi. And it is my pleasure to welcome our guest, the Dean of Students, Abby. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Abby, we have known each other for years now. I know you as a musician, composer,
Absolutely.
piano player, and then suddenly you are the dean of students in the two big junior high schools in town. Southeast Junior High on the east side of town, and Northwest Junior High on the west side of town. How can you describe for me your journey from music teacher, an active member of this community that we met in many committees before, including the middle school committee, the magnet school committee, and now you are so much involved in the education at the junior high level, which is the most challenging probably time of the education system in general. Tell me, how was your journey from playing piano into talking to parents and doing disciplinary things and all that?
Well, it's been an exciting journey, to say the least. I actually started when I was growing up. I played classical piano, and I took piano lessons, but my dad was a preacher, and my mom was a teacher, and I thought right out of the gate, there's no way I'm going to teach. So I resisted for as long as I could, and I started performing and playing and singing and doing singing and songwriting, and so I met a lot of people along the way. I worked in hotels, and I worked to meet a lot of people and brush up on my social skills, so that helped a lot. And then eventually I started seeing where I was pretty good at teaching private piano lessons. That was my first experience in teaching. And when I was in Oregon State, I started out with 5 students, and through word of mouth, I garnered 35 students in like a 3 months period. So students were responding to my teaching style, and parents were rewarding me by asking me to teach their children. And so when I noticed that I was really good at teaching, I thought, hey, I could probably teach music in schools, and that's when my journey first started. And I taught 9 years of general music in public schools all over the United States. I've taught in Vermont, Kentucky, Southern Illinois, and now here in Iowa, I taught at Garner Elementary. And through the process of getting my master's at the University of Iowa, I started feeling passionate about curriculum and curriculum studies, and I thought, what better way to make a difference than to be a leader? And that's when I started pursuing a second master's in leadership. So I have a master's in music ed, a master's in leadership, and I also, to get in the classroom, besides just doing music, I also got a master's in special education. So I taught at Trek as well.
Very good. So what does it mean to you to be the Dean of Students? Do you direct your efforts more on administrative or counseling? I guess, what are you most excited by?
I think the thing that really gets me going is making a difference in students' lives. I thought that would change. Like, that's how I was as a music teacher. I wanted to inspire students. And I thought, wow, if I go the leadership track, I may not inspire students. But I have found that I inspire students as a dean of students as well. So my interactions with students is where I feel is my most passionate part of my job, and interacting with students and hoping to make a difference in their lives.
And you also interact with the teachers and the parents as well.
Exactly.
What's that like for you?
Exactly. I feel like it's a hard road to navigate. I mean, in a way, it's a very political road to take, or political path to take. And so you have this triangle of having to do exactly what the school wants you to do, And then you have this situation that you want to do what's best for the student, but then you have a parent here who's saying, in a different ball game. So you have to please everyone. And so I find that it's not as easy as people would think. It's challenging in that way, trying to please everyone. It's not always easy.
How do you manage that?
I start with the student because that's who I'm in direct contact with. I want students to respect me and to feel that I'm fair, and to also feel that discipline does not stop at my door with the SAC broom. Discipline is something that you can take with you in your life and who you are as a person. Discipline is something that will help you grow to be an adult in this world and contribute to society. So I like to look at discipline as not just an end like a stop sign. It's more of like an arrow that is going to push students forward in their lives and to help them feel like they have somewhere they're going.
It's so exciting sometimes to see people move from art to administration. And we have Mr. Harnack at Hoover, who used to be an art teacher. And now you were a music teacher, moved to leadership now and administrative job. I think I don't know how you can, probably this is related to what Elvi was talking about. How do you manage to combine your artistic sensitivity and sensibility and delicacy with the role of, like discipline and try to get things in order?
Well, I think it's perspective, honey. I think we all have our own perspective, and I think being an artist gives me a unique perspective, and that's where I feel like I can be strong in communicating with teachers. Like, teachers are coming from a hierarchy. Like, I am the teacher, I know everything, and what goes on in here is my perspective. But I can kind of go into the classroom and talk to teachers and say, hey, maybe there's another way to see this. And I think being an artist gives me that ability to have a different perspective. So as the Dean of Student who comes from the background of an artist, I know that there's diversity in how we see things. It's not just one way.
Especially music. Because
Yes.
music is a very systematized art. It's not
Right.
like visual arts.
Right.
In visual arts, we accept a lot of things. Yeah, you can improvise in music,
Yes.
but you have to know how to read notes.
Exactly. Exactly.
In
There's
art, you can just use your brush and make. And I'm not criticizing art because I am a visual artist.
Right.
But you can break the rules easily. But in music, you have to abide by the rules, even at the
Exactly. Right.
upper level of improvisation and creativity.
Yes, you do. And I think the key is finding balance. I think you just described what happens in a classroom. You have the teacher who's saying, these are the rules, and then you have the student who doesn't always conform to the rules. And so you have to find a balance, like you're not in a place yet. That's what I would tell the student, you're not in a place yet where you can improvise.
You have experience in elementary and secondary in general, and now you are in the 2 junior high. Is it true that it is the most challenging time in education? From your own
I think
observation.
from my
Yeah.
opinion, in my opinion, I would say it's twofold. I think that in some ways I feel like I could make more of a difference at the elementary level. At the time once they're at junior high, it is more difficult, so there's a strain because the student, him or herself, is becoming a younger adult, so in that pushback, it's a harder place to try to navigate change or discourse. You're like, okay, you're not going in the right direction. How do we turn you? I don't know what other way to
Yeah.
put that, but that's a more difficult process at junior high
Because
than
there are a lot of
elementary.
physical
Exactly.
changes
Yes,
too.
there
and
have
That
then
makes
you
a lot
are-
of sense.
You are
Yes.
competing with hormones and
It's-
all
oh,
these
gosh.
chemicals
Right,
and all
right.
that changes.
Absolutely. Sure. Coming from, junior high, I guess, many years ago, it seems. Yeah, there's a lot of hormones involved, and there's a lot of competition.
Yes, yes.
Whether it's within self and or amongst, the other students. And but I found that, I went to Northwest Junior High, and I found that there was a lot of good impact from the teachers that helped me develop. And I don't think that I ever had to speak to the dean of students or even any of the higher ups in the school. But I'm with you on that. It's amazing to hear you say that in your position you really have to be universal in some ways, but pull everything together and pull everybody together so that you can come to a grounded and better understanding of how things operate.
Definitely, and with the new digital world that we live in, it brings in other complications, and,
Right.
and you have to lay out to the student like what this means in the adult world, or moving beyond the school, because they're thinking it's just in our narrow little vision of Snapchat, but it goes beyond that, and we have to teach those lessons.
Special classes for that?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you have special classes for that, or is that something that's taught in
Yes,
classrooms?
yes. Personal development. Did you have
Great.
personal
I
development?
did, sure.
That's
That
one
makes a lot
class
of sense to have it there,
Yes,
sure.
Right.
The issue that I'm going to raise right now is a very controversial issue that we see in the media in this
Of
moment,
Of course.
which has to do with discipline. And the fact that there is a major number of our community, parents, as well as educators, who are, let us say, opposing the idea of time-out seclusion room in the classroom, or corner, or they call it box sometime, and they
Yes,
call
yes.
it so this kind of confinement. A lot of people think that this is not only a lot of people, a lot of philosophers in education think that this is not the right way of doing discipline. Now, we have this in Iowa City School District since when? When did it start, or when did they start to put, I don't recall at the time when I was teaching that they had this little corner room.
That's
confinement.
Yes, that's a very good question. About the beginning of it, I'm not sure when it started.
Right.
I know it has been here since I have been a dean of students. I've noticed the timeout boxes. I don't know if they started in 2000 or before that. I'm not sure when they began. I think when you're looking at the timeout boxes from a distance, it looks quite troubling. I'm
Yeah.
just going to be honest with
Yes.
with that. If you're thinking about it in the context of students going in a timeout box, that can be quite troubling.
Especially when you see the pictures in the internet, it looks like
Right.
a
Right.
torture room or something.
Yes, exactly. I agree. Yes, but I will stress that no student is placed in the timeout box unless there's a threat to other students or him
Physically,
or herself.
maybe,
Physical
yes.
threat.
Yeah.
It's a safety concern. So if a teacher's been bitten
Threatened.
or
Pushed
objects are, yes, punched, hit, or a student has a chair thrown at them. So it's for the safety of the students. And typically, I don't know if there's, maybe there's one case, but typically there's not one case where a student has been placed in a timeout room where a parent has not signed off that this is a possible
No, thank you for
consequence for
clarification.
the student.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So parents have to sign off on that before we even use that as an option for a student.
To bring light to that, I don't know if you have ever watched the movie Matilda with Danny DeVito, but they have a timeout box.
Wow.
It has, and it looks pretty bad.
Oh, does it? Oh, wow.
It's awful. There's like nails sticking out of the
Oh, wow.
the walls of it.
Like a cage. Huh?
It is, but they bring, you know, a comical outlook on the whole thing. So that's really interesting to hear that there is this timeout box. Though I've never heard of it, nor did I ever experience it. Thank God, and or have I seen it. So this must be a very new, recent addition.
Well, it's in BD rooms.
Right.
I don't know, behavioral disabilities room or disorder room. So it's students with behavioral problems first off, and then what happens is that there's a team of people who have been trained in CPI training, which is a sort of physical hold that you would carry and take the student who's a threat to other students or to him or herself. And he's placed in there, but we've gone through a lot of training to be CPI certified. So not every teacher is CPI certified. It's a team of teachers who are qualified to hold the student in a certain way that would not hurt the student.
Okay, we talked about all the challenges in your job. What's the most pleasant thing? The most rewarding thing?
What's the
that
most rewarding for
You
me?
get up in the morning, you say, oh, I'm going now to school. And there's something like tempting and something inspiring, something joyful there.
Well, it's twofold. I must say I love the people I work with. I love the teachers at Northwest and Southeast Junior High. So I have a great experience with the teachers. I have built a great reputation with them. So I love interacting with them and making a difference in the students' lives. So that's the most rewarding part is
And
starting
you see
again.
the result of
Yes,
that.
I do. I think I do. I think.
Do you get recognition from parents?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's-
Absolutely. They're calling Matt Degner all the time.
That's very
Yeah.
important. And for the viewer, Matt Dagner is the associate or the assistant superintendent of the school district.
Exactly. Yes.
And he was actually the principal
Oh,
at
at Southeast.
before
Exactly.
a couple of years ago, before
Mhm.
he took this important responsibility.
Right.
Now, you told us about your journey across the United States,
Mhm.
working in all this. What is really the no, this is sound very cliche, but do you feel that our kids has something that is different from all the other places that you were in?
That's a very good question, but to be honest, I don't think there's really that much difference in students. I think.
I mean, you have been all over.
Yes, I know. I lived in rural Vermont
Right.
and taught. That was my first teaching job. So, in that way, I think the students there, you know, that was their first experience of a person of color in their schools. But overall, I think all students want the same things. They want to be productive adults and grow up and be a part of society. And they have questions that sometimes we can't answer in school, you know? So I don't think there's much difference at all.
Thank you.
It definitely is going to take some experiences,
Right.
life experiences.
Yes.
I do want to touch on, before we started this show, we had a conversation about your musical theater and theater,
Right.
and how you are working on a play. Is
Yeah, a
that
musical.
correct? A musical,
Yes,
okay.
I'm writing an original musical. It's called Ragdoll 7. And it's about the experience of,
Is it different from high school musical?
yeah. It's a little more dramatic. Sorry. Yes, and so I'm composing all the music and writing it from scratch.
In what phase are you in right now?
Oh gosh, I'm working on Act 2, so that's the final act, and hopefully I can complete it.
Now I'm going to move the conversation to a very special area, which is my observation the time when I was teaching, which was not really 2 centuries ago, but you know, let us say a decade or so. During this decade, I have seen a leap of changes in the leadership, whereby at my time, usually the leader, the dean of students and the principal and all those were the good old boys, you know, and with the suits and the ties and so on, no hats. But
Right. I hear you.
but now I see a lot of female leaders, which is really encouraging that they, the stereotypical role of a female educator is to be in classroom. And now it's moving to
Right.
the leadership and planning and all that, and policy making and decision making. How do you feel as a leader and as a woman and as a minority member?
I feel very proud to be a part of education. I think it has changed a lot. I think it's growing a lot. I do feel that I would agree with you that we've made some changes, but I feel like there are more changes to be made, obviously. I think that this is a good district to work for. As a minority, I feel like I am learning the things I need to learn to make that next step in the district. So I feel that it's a positive thing that there are women leaders, and the schools haven't burned down or haven't lost control.
Right.
But I'd like to see that happen too with minorities. I'd like to see people trust that minorities can run a building, or minorities can be leaders and principals and assistant principals as well.
What are you looking for to in the near future?
In the near future, I think having more minorities in leadership positions and having more minority teachers would.
We still don't have,
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
percentage-wise, we
Right.
don't have enough minority teachers, I agree.
Right, I agree as well. And what would be even more important is that we have more diverse perspectives. Like we started at the beginning of the show, I think a diverse perspective would add a lot, and it doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are. And I think you can impact the lives of students in this area. So I feel that we can step away from saying that we have to have a certain number of minorities and move into, let's have some diverse perspectives in our education system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It does make sense, and I agree fully with what you said. Now, what is the difference between a middle school and junior high? Because
very
and we were like 10, 15 years ago, we were going to move the system into middle school.
Right.
And suddenly the idea collapsed.
Well, I'm pretty biased about this, honey.
Yeah, okay, let me
I'm
hear.
biased because I grew up in a middle school
Right.
experience in North Carolina. So I went 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the same school, whereas a junior high is just 7th and 8th grade.
Right.
And I feel like some of the elementaries around here are strained with the 6th graders who are ready to
Right.
move into middle school. So I'm a little biased. I wish I was a part of that discussion about the middle schools, because I would have been all for 6th, 7th, and 8th being in the same building. So
We had a superintendent, Dr. Pluggy, who was really very supportive of the idea, and I was a member of the committee of the middle school, and I think I am too. I'm leaning more towards the idea of middle school. I just cannot imagine a 6th grader in the same corridor and the hallway of the school with the kindergarten kids, you know.
Right,
I mean, it just
exactly.
doesn't make sense to me.
I know, I agree.
And it had, it's of course, everything has pros and cons, but I think middle school idea may be very successful. What do you foresee any future that we can have a middle school here again? Or
That's
it
a
will,
big question.
Yeah.
It depends on who's leading. I mean,
Oh,
I
okay.
think it would be very promising if parents got on board. I
At
think
least to have one in
one
the district.
example, and
Yeah.
even if we had a magnet school
Right.
that has 6th, 7th, and 8th,
Right.
just so we could try it out, that would be the first base to experimenting with having a middle school in Iowa City school districts.
Well, is there anything you want to talk to parents about? You have the camera now. If I have, and Elwie, if we have overlooked certain points, please, you have a
Okay,
minute.
well, thank you so much. I want to say that I really have enjoyed this conversation that we're having. I want parents to know if they have any questions to please contact me at Southeast Junior High or Northwest Junior High. I work at both schools, and I am so grateful of the support that I've gotten from parents, and I especially enjoy my job with my students.
And
Thank
we
you
are
for
so
having me.
grateful that you came and spent this evening with us. I wish our program is much more than half an hour.
Right.
So we can enjoy more, and maybe you listen to some piano.
That would be nice.
That would have our singing.
That would be nice.
Maybe your next step, we're going to do that. How's that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, and
Thank
we
you very
are
much.
really, really
you.
happy to have you. This program, of course, as our viewers would know, will be on channel 18. That's the public access TV channel, and thanks to the public access TV for offering us
Yes.
all this beautiful facility and equipments, and everything is
Wow.
ultra modern here now. And the channel 21, that's the educational channel, as well as YouTube. And if you don't have the cable service, then you can turn your computer on and go to Public Access TV website. You will find all the programs. I want to thank John Karhoff, the father of this program. I always say 25 years, and he corrects me. He said, "Honey, it's just 21 years, so that's all." So that's John Karhoff and Mike Peterson, and of course Trenton.
Yes.
Who you have met.
The producer.
And yes, one of the directors here, as well as the leadership here at Public Access TV. Very devoted people. Thank you, our audience, and enjoy November, middle November. We are mid-November. It's beautiful summer.